Last week, I challenged you to become aware of the gap that you're experiencing between the reality that you're living and the life you dream of. And as I explained, we are powerful divine warriors, and we're created to live in freedom, fullness, and abundance. But because we live in a broken world where we experience pain, our disappointment becomes discouragement and disillusionment over time. And then we settle for this striving, struggling, and surviving in life rather than thriving the way that we were intended. We feel the heaviness and the hopelessness of that gap in our lives. And eventually we resign ourselves to the fact that this semblance of a life may just be all there is for us. And to make matters worse, we blame our choices and we beat ourselves up for getting it all wrong. Then we fear losing what we do have, so we just keep struggling to keep all those plates spinning the best way that we know how. Today, I want to share with you an important key to getting the breakthrough that you want so that you can close the gap and thrive in the life that God intended for you. It's crucial to understand that you aren't living the life that you were intended to for one of two reasons. The first reason is this: it's because you have an ineffective mindset that needs to change. We have some stinking thinking going on because our thoughts create our reality. And then the second reason why that you're not living the life that you were intended to is because of a pattern of behavior that is no longer serving you. So we've got some behaviors that we have used for survival, and they've allowed us to survive, but at this point, they're not allowing us to thrive. And it's really that simple, but it's not so easy to transform. The good news is that once you recognize which mindsets and which patterns of behavior are hindering you, then making the changes are very possible. We cling to these mindsets and we cling to these behaviors, these habits that we learned only early on in life and that we've reinforced along the way, and they've allowed us to survive, but at this point they're not serving us and they're not allowing us to live the life that we want. And I lived in bondage to many of these ineffective mindsets and many habits for most of my life until at 39 years old, I had a mental, emotional, and physical breakdown. I had been hanging on in survival mode for years, struggling, striving, and surviving, but I couldn't keep going anymore. And though it was a scary and unsettling time at first, breaking down actually enabled me to awaken to the truth that I didn't have to keep settling for a smaller, harder existence than the one that God had intended for me. And I had had enough. And so I was ready to learn something new and willing to do whatever it took to do something new. And over the next year and since then, I did some really powerful inner work with a professional coach, during which I gained an awareness of the lies that I was believing and the patterns of behavior that I was engaging in that kept me stuck in the struggle. And I also learned how to retrain my brain and adjust my patterns of behavior to create a new reality that aligned with the one that my heart desperately wanted. And as I changed internally, my circumstances changed externally. And we try to do it backwards. We want to see the change first before we're willing to change inside. It's the other way around. But now that I've done that and seen that in my life, I'm passionate about helping other men and women close the gap in every area of their lives, in their work, in their businesses, in their relationships, by applying the same principles that I learned that helped me transform my reality in ways that I never thought or imagined were possible. And I'm excited to share some of those with you over the next couple weeks. And today I'm going to start with naming the 4 big mindsets that kept me stuck in survival and that I see hindering most people that I work with on a daily basis, and how to actually break through or to get breakthrough from those 4 big mindsets. And then I'm going to dive into how our ineffective behavior patterns entrap us in a much smaller and harder existence than the one that we were created for. And I'm going to share wisdom to help you break free from some of those pitfalls. But before I elaborate on the big four mindset specifically, I want to explain how our mindsets create the gap in our lives in the first place. Every thought that we think creates a corresponding emotion that we feel. So we think a thought, there's a triggering thought, it produces an emotion, it produces a feeling. And our feelings feel so real that they create our reality, and we react to them unaware that not all our thoughts are true. And we don't realize that we have a choice about which thoughts we think and which ones we accept as truth. And when we think a thought followed by a feeling, and that thought gets reinforced over time as truth, it becomes a belief. And then our beliefs create our reality positively or negatively. And then we attract more of what we believe to our present reality. For example, if I'm believing that I'm not worthy of having something, then I'm going to subconsciously repel that thing in my reality so I won't have it. And the absence of that thing in my life then reinforces the belief that I don't deserve it and will never have it. You see the cycle? So my belief is solidified and then feels true over time, and it feels even truer as we go. Then it's reinforced in my reality, and the cycle just continues. We're deceived by the lie that we believe, and we don't understand that we are repelling what we truly desire. And those reinforced beliefs soon become mental strongholds that enslave us and keep us believing that we deserve less. So we see and we experience that less as our reality. The very word stronghold means a fortified place or a place of security or survival. Think about that. Our belief about every situation, every circumstance, or possibility in our lives create a reality that feels true even if it may not be. That belief is fortified in our mind so that we can't see anything other than that reality as an option. Our beliefs then imprison us so that we see limited possibility and opportunity. So we live small and we settle. And we don't know how to challenge these thoughts that hinder us or how to retrain our minds to believe a new reality that aligns with the truth of what God says instead of what feels real to us. And God promises us a life of freedom, fullness, and abundance. He declares us worthy of our royal inheritance. And we are powerful warriors who are created to live victoriously over fear, lack, shame, and doubt. But from early in our lives, we are opposed by the evil one's schemes. No one teaches us how to win the war in our mind, so we succumb to the lies and settle for merely surviving when we were created to thrive. And we've got to recognize that we are being robbed of our birthright, and that struggling, striving, and surviving is not our portion. We don't realize that we have power and authority of the lies over the lies that we believe, and we have powerful weapons to help us win the war in our minds. For instance, 2 Corinthians 10:4-5 says, and I love the Mirror Study Bible version, and it says, the dynamic of our strategy is revealed in God's ability to disengage mindsets and perceptions that have held people captive in pseudo fortresses for centuries. There's that stronghold. There's that mental stronghold. Every lofty idea and argument positioned against God's knowledge of us is cast down and exposed to be a mere invention of our own imagination. And we arrest every thought at spear point, and anything that could possibly trigger an opposing threat to our redeemed identity and innocence is taken captive. It's taken prisoner of war. And I love that verse. It's so powerful. That language is so powerful. It's war language. And we got to win this war in our mind. And when we awaken to the truth of the life that we were intended to live, and we realize the survival mindsets are no longer effective, then we can begin to take back our minds. And to defend our dreams and unlock our destiny, we've got to get to the core of our mental strongholds. Make no mistake, our oppressor The evil one is viciously defending these fortresses to keep us stuck there. He wants us to live small. He wants us to be limited. But to get the breakthrough that we want in our lives, to close the gap so that we can live the life we dream of instead of settling for the reality that we've always known, the mental strongholds have to be recognized and torn down. And we have to participate willingly in that. We must unleash a full-out war on our mindsets, on these mental strongholds, to break their grip on us. When we recognize an area in which we're struggling to change, we've got to gain awareness of what lie we're believing that is perpetuating that reality and battle that thought with the power and authority of our warrior within. We got to recognize the lie, we've got to resist it, and we've got to replace it with truth and stand firm in the new truth, meditating on it and speaking it until we believe it. And as our belief changes, our reality changes, and then we see breakthrough. So I challenge you to get honest about the gap that you're experiencing in your life, in your work, in your business, in your relationships, in your finances. What reality do you desperately want to change, but you just, no matter what you do, it stays the same? Spend some time becoming aware of what you are believing about that situation or about that circumstance that is keeping you stuck. What lies are you buying into that are perpetuating that reality that's not serving you? Then ask yourself, when or where did I learn that as truth? And decide that you're not going to be deceived by that limiting belief anymore. Resist it and take it as prisoner of war in your battle for your mind. Then replace that lie with what God says is true. Stand firm in that new truth, meditating on it, declaring it as your new truth, feeling it, embodying it, and until you believe it with everything in you. If you will do this as a daily discipline, you will begin to believe the new truth, and your feelings will eventually align with your belief. Then you will see your reality change and your gap will close. Give it a try and watch miracles happen in your life.